maybe we just ride separately.
We were going to pay extra for parking.
Extra for parking, extra for gas, the whole nine, because it just runs that deep.
It's the arrival. I came in the league, went straight for the title.
He's got it! Jeremiah Smith!
The Michigan Wolverines shocked the college football world.
You know, some people gotta learn how to lose, man.
And after all that, it's Ohio State together at the mountaintop.
There's nothing quite like the game.
Michigan versus Ohio State.
This is The Rivalry. Proud to be part of the Varsity Network from Learfield and sponsored by Elevated Integrity Construction.
This is what the whole thing has been about. For the last 7 years of this podcast, this week is what the entire podcast revolves around. This is the Rivalry Podcast. It's Michigan and Ohio State. It is the week of the game. My name is Jace. That's JP. Michigan man, Buckeye nut. Thought this podcast was a good idea for some reason. And every year at the end of November,
I always question it around this week.
This is about the point where I go, should we be doing this? But here we are anyway. Thank you for being here as well. It's from River Radio Ministries, presented by our friends at Elevated Integrity Construction. We are on social media at Rival Pod, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube if you're watching there right now. If you're not, hide on over there. Go ahead and do that. And be sure to rate and review when you subscribe. Thank you so much for doing that.
Can I tangent for just a second? Because
there's so much. There's so much to go through.
Well, and we set this up when Michigan played Michigan State a couple of weeks ago, but I just need people to know, if you are not from either side of this fan base, to know just how real this game gets this time of year. Jason and I are very good friends, whether he would want to admit it or not.
Yeah, we've seen each other around.
We're good friends. And a couple of years ago, we had the opportunity to be able to go and ride up together to go to this game. And we did not do it. And we respected the person's choice to not go.
Because that was 23, wasn't it?
It was 23 because we sat down and had a legitimate conversation about it where we said
our wives think we're so dumb when it comes to this stuff.
But this is how real it gets. We literally had to sit down and go, okay, here are ground rules if we ride together. We're not watching highlights after the game. There's no trash talking after the game, regardless of the outcome. It is a silent car ride. That whole, it would have been a 2.5 hour drive.
We'll listen to the Iron Bowl on the way back.
Yeah, we'll listen to another game. We'll mute it when they go to do a recap of this one. It was going to be silent. Then we even went on to say, maybe we just ride separately.
We were going to pay extra for parking.
Extra for parking, extra for gas, the whole nine, because it just runs that deep.
And you ended up just not going.
I just ended up not going because who wants to go to the big house on a Saturday in November?
Because
I'm going.
You will be there on Saturday. And again, that's part of this thing too. Is I turned this year because I can't make fun of you. I turned down an opportunity this year for an on-field photographer pass for this game because I knew I wouldn't be able to actually work with that game going on. I knew that I wasn't going to enjoy it as much. I wouldn't be able to watch it because you're there working. And I said, no, I don't think I'm going to do that. So you'll be press level for this game. Good on you. I think you're making up for the 23 game.
I am. Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. Was one of those things where it's and some people probably might not understand this because they're either listening or watching and going, why would you pass up a chance to go? This game is such an anxiety-driven game for me that being in my basement in the darkest room possible by myself, just hyper-focused on that is the move. That is the ideal watching for this game. The idea of watching this game with anybody besides my wife and kids. The idea of going to, let's have a big get-together thing. I'm let's go to a Michigan establishment. No. I'll watch it with my wife and my kids. That's it. I don't want anybody else there. Nope. Don't call. Don't text. I literally will set my phone face down and away from me. Yep. And that's it. I just can't. We'll jump on Twitter at Rival Pod. But even that, and then we'll actually get into the game here. But we got to set the scene for you about how important this is to us. Even on Twitter, we have to we tweet out the rules of engagement for that afternoon. And the rules for years have always been fairly objective analysis, commentary on the game, because usually it's just, usually we both kind of take turns at the helm. It'll probably mostly be you because you're going to be at the game. Objective analysis,
We're not like excited equally in moderation for both sides. But once that game is over, whoever's team has won, the other person log the heck out. The other person log the heck in and go ham for the rest of the day. Mm-hmm. Like it has been a delightful 4 years.
My Twitter fingers are ready. I've got some stuff saved.
So let's talk some actual football here.
Yeah, so we usually start the show. If you're new here, we've had a lot of subscribers and people that have joined this community recently.
Thank you.
We like to do this thing called Wheel Route. Thanks to our friends at the Ohio Sinus Institute for sponsoring this segment. And it's just something where we kind of talk through some of the biggest topics leading up to this weekend's games. And I think this one's kind of a no-brainer. And people are going to probably hear this and go, you can't talk about that because he just signed an extension in February. But I think in this fan base and this rivalry, it's going to happen every single year. Mm-hmm. And so the wheel route today is this Ryan Day's last chance to beat Michigan?
Is it his last chance to beat Michigan?
If he loses on Saturday.
No. I mean, it's not going to be his last chance to beat Michigan. And I think I guess I'll answer this first here. But like, I think you just nailed it. Like, he just signed an extension. He's coming off a national championship. Now, here's what I would answer that firmly. No, this will not be his last chance to beat Michigan. I don't think there's a world in which that happens. I will say that it's really interesting to see. It will be very interesting to see the perception and perspective around Ryan Day if he does lose this game, because and we talked about this a lot last year in the expanded playoff, where you can lose the most shocking upset in 130 years of Michigan, Ohio State, mm-hmm. where you can lose that game, but still win a national title. It does. I think for some folks, it does. It shouldn't change the perception of the game. I think it has. It certainly changes the implications of the game. And mm-hmm. I think that would be my big argument here. If I'm kind of tangentially answering your question, it does. The game can never be anything less than of ultimate importance. Can the stakes be higher? Sure they can, but it's never less than ultimate.
Yeah.
And so I think if you're Ryan Day, you will probably get another 2 or 3 opportunities to play Michigan. But what happens over time is that, and I can tell you this as a Michigan fan, you win the national title, and if the next year doesn't go the way you'd hoped, okay, Ohio State game aside, Michigan did not have a great year last year until the very, very end. The trophy shines a little bit less bright the further you get away from it. And so if Ryan Day is not going to find ways to beat Michigan, he better come home with another shiny trophy. Because what that national title last year did, and this is why I believe that winning the game is more important than winning the national title, that national championship is great, but players even said this week, it's great that we did that. Nobody here has a Big Ten championship. Mm-hmm. Nobody here has a pair of gold pants outside of some of the coaching staff. The national title for Ryan Day, all that did was buy him time
100%
to beat Michigan. The national title and winning the game, whether you're Michigan or Ohio State, it's 1A and 1B. But 1A is winning the game. Because forever, when people look at that national title, yes, Ohio State has every right to be pumped about that national title, 100%. But every time they bring it up, you know what comes with it? Yeah, but they didn't beat Michigan. Like every time that mm-hmm. Ohio State gets brought up in these conversations, anytime that national championship is talked about from the media, it's, well, after the loss to Michigan, they regrouped and did such and such. That's true. But it's that reminder. It's that needle every mm-hmm. single time it comes up of, yeah, but hey, they did this after this terrible thing, depending on what side you're on after this thing happened. Yeah. So all that to say, winning this game is more important than the national championship. You are welcome to disagree in the comments. That's fine. This is actually one area where I think we're on the same page here.
Yeah.
But no, this is not Ryan Day's last chance to beat Michigan. But if he doesn't, you better come home with a trophy. And that does mean this year. That doesn't mean he's getting fired. But it does mean if you lose this game, the only way to remotely salvage any part of losing this game is going and winning the whole thing. And unfortunately, unlike Jack Sawyer, as much as he'd like to complain about it, it doesn't kind of erase the loss to Michigan.
Yeah,
but it does put a little bit of a balm on it, though.
Yeah, I love Jack Sawyer. When he came on the podcast and said that was just outrageous. That will always be, and you said it perfectly, You can be excited about last season.
And you should, and to be fair, you should be.
Absolutely. I mean, there wasn't an easy route for last year. They had to face the toughest team every single round, and they dominated it. They didn't even just win. They dominated every single team. I don't think it's Ryan Day's last chance. But here's where I think it starts to get interesting. And there's going to be people that are going to disagree with this as well, like you said. And I think those people just don't understand what this game truly means. There are people that are outside of this fan base that have no skin in the game like this, that just don't fully grasp it. I think Ryan Day, if he loses on Saturday, his seat gets real hot, real fast. I think it's cooled down a lot because ever since last year's loss, the guy has been on a tear. He has just absolutely dominated every single opponent that he has faced. He's won big games. His team looks ready. He's got the best defense. I mean, they have just reloaded. The expectations are super high again. But like you said, this game is of the utmost importance. He loses this game. I don't think he's not going to get fired. He just signed a contract extension in February that lasts through 2031. He's not going to get fired right after the season, regardless. Even if he were to lose to Michigan and then lose first round of the playoffs, Ryan Day's coming back next year. However, I do genuinely think this buys him one more shot. I think if he goes into next season, I don't care if they are undefeated going into the game again. I don't care what that looks like. If he loses this Saturday, the narrative now becomes next November, you've got to win or you're gone. I started looking, and I think normally in years past, this is a thing where you'd go, well, he just signed a massive extension. They're not going to fire him and let go of all that money and blah, 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 whatever. But you've seen it this year, time and time again. You've got Brian Kelly, James Franklin, Billy Napier, all with big contracts that are massive buyouts. Now, James Franklin's got negated a little bit because he went and took the Virginia Tech job. But that was Brian Kelly was $53 million. James Franklin, $49 million. Billy Napier, $21 million. For a school like that that's realizes the importance of this game and knows what it means to this program, they'll do whatever. And this is coming from an Ohio State fan. This Ohio State fan base is some of the most psychotic that you could ever be around. And that's coming from, and I'm part of it at times. It's hi, I'm the problem.
Would you call it a lunatic fringe?
Yes. And I'm not that group, but I am in other ways. Yeah. But that fan base is going to be quick. If he doesn't turn it around and win in Ann Arbor this Saturday, and then whatever happens next season, he ends up losing a game or two in the regular season, loses that game again, people are going to forget all about what he did last year real quick.
There eventually comes a point there. And again, I don't know that you're there, but there does come a point because, again, the reason that you're not there is because he won that national title. Now, I don't think that the administration would have let him go, but I think fans would have been entirely done with him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one of the things that drove me nuts last year as a Michigan guy was reading, because I read, like, I love college football, man. Like, I read all the stuff. I read the Ohio State beat. We've got friends on the beat. And so, shout out to them. They do great work. But one of the things that really drove me nuts was after the Michigan game, all these pieces about this is unacceptable, launch him into the sun. We're done with Ryan Day. I don't think he has it in him. And then Ohio State wins, and it's extend that man. It's the greatest run in history. And I go, this is why nobody likes Ohio State fans, because that was 6 weeks later.
Well,
it was incredible. Like, I get it, but I don't get it. But I think my point being, though, that I think the fans, if he loses this game, it doesn't win a national title, like, I think there's some real consternation. Eventually you get to the point where you go, and this is where Penn State got. This is just not working. It's crazy to say that, and no other fan base outside of Michigan and Ohio State would do that because no other fan base has this game. Even Auburn, Alabama. Mm-hmm. And I think that is the closest college football rivalry to the game. I don't think it holds a candle to it, but I think it's close. Mm-hmm. I think it's getting closer. Kalen DeBoer is now Alabama's season. That might be a different conversation. Yeah. But, Kalen DeBoer is not solely judged on, did you beat Auburn? Hugh Freeze or whoever the interim is now is not solely judged on, did you beat Alabama? Ryan Day, Sharon Moore are solely judged on, did you beat that team? I mean,
to your point about Ryan Day, where the Ohio State beat is saying, well, he didn't win, let's launch him into the core of the sun. Michigan fans were the same way with Harbaugh. It's the exact same scenario. Before their title runs, where they won 3 Big Ten championships in a row, you even were a part of that. Where there was a time where, thanks to Rutgers, his season was saved. That's some deep lore for you.
Coming out of that COVID year.
That was a season where Michigan fans were done with him.
Yep.
A large majority of them. Yourself, I don't know if you were fully on that edge, but you were there. You were talking about it.
After the COVID season, I was done.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's why fans don't make decisions. But there's legitimacy to the fact that Ryan Day has got to, and Ohio State will win eventually, but how long are you willing to wait? The fans, I don't think, are willing to wait as long as guys like Ross Bjork. And this is the last thing I'll say, then let's talk about actual football here. But one of the things that just should drive Ohio State fans nuts is I don't think Ross Bjork gets it. I genuinely don't think your AD understands this rivalry. So here's a quote from him. This is an article from just a couple days ago. So this is Ross Bjork talking about the game. And he says, the game at the end of the year is the game, period, full stop, never de-emphasize, never take it for granted. And then he doesn't go full stop. He says, but then, what about the next game that happens that same season? Then someone else says, objectively, the rivalry is not what it was. You can lose the Michigan game and win the national championship. I don't think you get it.
Well, I'm glad he's not coaching.
I don't think you get it. I think Ryan Day gets it. I think Sherwin Moore gets it.
100%. And I don't disagree at all. But let's talk a little bit about this Ohio State team. Played Rutgers this past weekend. My heart is always torn when this weekend comes because I'm a Buckeye through and through. I have been my entire life. They're who I'm rooting for. It's just I love Rutgers. They play each other. I want Rutgers stomped into the ground. It doesn't feel great.
Yeah,
but it's what I want to happen.
If you're watching on YouTube, there's like a Mike Rutgers jersey over here.
Mike Teal.
And a Rutgers helmet and a Scarlet Knight helmet that you as a grown adult man bought.
I didn't. It was a gift from my father-in-law.
That's
so
not any better somehow.
It is.
But let's talk about Ohio State Rutgers.
Yeah, this was a game that you kind of already knew what it was going to look like. I mean, we talked about it all last week. You expected Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate to be held out. They both were. There were some weird ramblings that I don't think there was any legitimacy to of them potentially not even starting Julian Sayin and having Lincoln Kienholz play. And I love the Ohio State social media team because they actually kind of trolled this a little bit. So towards the end of the week, when it's their last practice before the game week, they always say like work week done, check mark, and it's whoever's breaking down the huddle. And they posted Kienholz in there. And I was like, they know what they're doing. They know ball. Yeah. And so there were like small ramblings about that. Nothing obviously was going to happen with that. Julian Sayin came out. The game plan was exactly what you would expect. Julian Sayin didn't really have to do anything. He was efficient. He was playing with 4th and 5th string guys. Brandon Ennis and Max Clare were probably your greatest weapons. Max Clare, honestly, an underwhelming season so far. Brandon Ennis, again, a little bit of an underwhelming season. I don't think there were high expectations, but with Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith being out, I think a lot of people were hyped up to see him go out and perform. He had a great catch. That was kind of it. Yeah. Max Clare had himself a day. That was his best performance in a Buckeye uniform. But they had guys that are, 5th, 6th string guys out there trying to catch the ball. So you knew the game plan, even just going into the day, was going to be a heavy dosage of Bo Jackson. Yeah. Well, and it sure was.
And Rutgers coming in with the worst rush defense in the Big Ten.
The Big Ten.
One of the worst in the country.
Yeah. And
it makes sense.
And we talked about that. It was the same game plan you were going to see against UCLA.
Yep.
They were going to run it down their throats, see if they could stop them. They couldn't. Ohio State had 254 rushing yards. They won 42-9. The thing that I walked away the most impressed, and it's kind of with a grain of salt too, because Rutgers
competition
defense,
notwithstanding.
Yeah, we talked about it last week. Rutgers defense is atrocious, but there were some good takeaways from this. I thought the UCLA game and I thought the Rutgers game would be great tune-up games for a guy like Bo Jackson, some great confidence builders. The stuff that I saw on Saturday, regardless of the competition, was just excellent. His explosiveness, his cuts, his vision reminded me a little bit of Travion Henderson back when he was a freshman. Bo Jackson had a phenomenal day, 19 carries, 110 yards, 2 touchdowns. Buckeyes had 254 rushing yards on the ground. Where I was most impressed, though, is this Ohio State offense in general. Going out there, not knowing you weren't going to have Carnell Tate, knowing you weren't going to have Jeremiah Smith, you're having guys like David Adolph go in, who's probably a 5th string because Quincy Porter wasn't playing, Mylan Graham wasn't playing. So you've got a 5th string senior in there that's not really ever seen the field going in there to try to catch passes. And they still scored 42. And I walked away from that going, okay, this offense is still really dang good. Granted, Rutgers has a really, really bad defense, but 42 points in a game where I expected them to slow down a little bit. And I think there were some mistakes, honestly, that were obviously an Ohio State thing. Bo Jackson fumbled it on the opening drive where they were basically at the goal line. You take care of the ball, they probably punched that in.
Yeah.
You're looking at stuff like that. You're looking at the defense. The defense held Rutgers to 147 yards total.
Good.
I talked all last week about this is the best Rutgers offense. They had a 1,000-yard rusher. KJ Duff is probably a first, second round pick in the NFL draft. Ian Strong is another good guy. DT Sheffield, another. They had the best receiving core in the Big Ten statistically.
I was going to say,
just want to emphasize that statistically.
Let's remember, while I ask you to please subscribe to the podcast, that you mentioned that Rutgers has the best wide receiver room in the Big Ten.
Statistically.
Sure. Stats are stats.
Stats are stats. Statistically, they did.
Here's a stat that I want to know if this concerns you at all. And I kind of know the answer here. But I mean, Julian Sayin, 13-19, 157. Couple touchdowns. Is that concerning at all, or is that more a product of, hey, that's efficient, it's fine, he doesn't have his top receivers?
It's that.
Okay.
I mean, I think it is what it is.
I'm asking the leading question because I figure that's probably we've seen enough sample size from Sayin to go, hey, he's pretty good.
It's like it's disappointing in a sense, and there were some weird things that happened on Saturday that I just don't fully understand.
So let's talk about that, because I've got a couple of those too.
So one of those is obviously, I get it, but as a fan, you don't really want to see it. But Julian Sayin obviously trying to have a Heisman campaign, and you read the stats. I mean, they barely give him a chance to really stat pad or do anything like that. They did the same thing essentially against UCLA. He just didn't need to do anything like that. So I think that kind of hurt his case. The other thing that I think was maybe the weirdest part of this was Ryan Day's random decision to put Lincoln Kienholz in at the most obscure times. Like there was one drive where it was like 2nd and 7 or something like that, and they put Kienholz in, and I thought, oh, they're going to run it. Then he drops back to pass, and then I'm like, well, but you have a guy that like is 80% completion rate, right? Like Julian Sayin's right here.
Wasn't it him who got Brandon Ennis lit up?
Yeah,
because he threw maybe that was that same play, because he also came in on, wasn't it the 4th down play where it was fourth down, and they brought Kienholz in, and I remember looking at the TV going, huh. Well, and then he threw the ball, and the Rutgers bailed him out with a stupid, roughing the passer penalty.
And that's the thing that it's not that I don't understand throwing him in a package every now and then,
but why then?
To run it.
And why then?
When it is 4th and 1 and you bring Kienholz in, I get it, because you don't want Sayin to have to take too many hits. You want to keep him healthy. Kienholz, obviously a bigger body, playing the Devin Brown kind of role with
the Tate
him.
Martell package.
Yeah, so I understood it. In my mind, the second I saw Lincoln go out onto the field on that 4th and 1, I thought, okay, well, this is a tush push.
He's big. Hand it to him. Let him go.
This is what it is. I think it was even like 4th and 2 or 3.
Yeah,
they sent him out, and I was like, I mean, I guess.
Yeah, why not?
Like, I get an option.
But also, why?
I get an option, and then he didn't run it, and he didn't hand it off. Instead, he threw it.
And not well.
And so I didn't understand.
It seemed to me watching, and maybe this is just looking at it from the Michigan lens. It felt to me like it was, and they talked about this on the broadcast too, like, well, let's put this on film. Okay.
Ain't nobody afraid of Lincoln Kienholz.
And that's what I wrote down. I'll read you my exact note. I said, even if it's film candy, nobody's concerned about this.
No.
So you go into the Michigan game and watch me say this, and then watch Kienholz rip off a run. It was the Alex Orji thing in the game last year, where it's like, oh, gee, I wonder what'll happen, and then he just rips one. I'm like, oh, okay, that's fine. But Kienholz comes in the big house. I'm going, well, yeah, I guess they showed that option where he can throw. I think I'm just going to defend the run, because he'll probably defend the pass himself by throwing it way over there.
I think that's valid.
It didn't make much sense. And occasionally just some of Ryan Day's decisions in late November are just chef's kiss. If you're a Buckeye fan, you better hope he got that out of the way now.
That was going to be my point.
It looked like some of the Michigan game plan calling where you go, What are you doing here?
And I think there's the part where you want to read into that stuff, and then there's the part where you go, maybe he just knows the competition. He's trying some things out.
Sure.
Because there was even a moment, and you saw this earlier in the season against Minnesota, where it was on a punt return, and they like caught it on the one side, threw it all the way to the opposite side. Styles like
about that.
ran up the field. They did the same thing this weekend where they were already up like 30 something.
Yeah, it was bad.
And it was a horrid pass that honestly they got lucky they recovered. And I'm sitting there going, but why?
Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know that they were up by that much yet.
No, they were up by a good amount.
They? Okay.
They were up by a good amount. It might have been like 21-3 or something, but still enough to where you knew you looked at it and went, well, I mean,
they're trying to put stuff on film, I guess. Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know.
There just some things that don't make sense.
There were weird things. Part of me thought this is he doesn't have his core guys. He knows he's not in danger of losing. Let's just try some stuff. Let's get some in-game reps of these plays and see how they work. Whatever. Get it all out against Rutgers, because if I see a single ounce of that in Michigan, I'm coming down from the press box and I'm having a word with Ryan, because this is the one thing, and we'll talk a little bit more in depth when we get to the preview of the game. Yeah. But this was the thing, being at the game last year, that I noticed that I hope has changed, was Ryan Day towards the end of that game when Michigan was driving and they were getting close to field goal range and they would call a timeout. The defense would be huddled around and Ryan Day would be off on the side. He would be far away from the group, kind of pacing to himself. And that worried me in the moment, because I'm looking at that going, this is like, I mean, you're on the verge of losing the biggest upset in probably Ohio State history to this team. And I felt no energy. It felt like all panic. And the vibes were not vibing. And I'm sitting there, the game's outcome's not even decided.
Yeah.
And I am enraged on the inside watching this, because I'm like, if I'm the coach, I'm getting in their face, like I'm pumping them up. I'm doing something to let them know I'm here and I care. But he just felt distant. The thing that I've seen with Ryan Day this year, up until obviously this Rutgers game with some of the weird decision making, has been laser focused. So it was weird to kind of see that creep itself back in a little bit, because all season long they've just played kind of this clean, for lack of a better term, boring brand of football.
Yeah,
they know you're not going to stop them on offense. Their defense is going to suffocate you. Game's over. They blow you out by 30. They move on to the next week. Rinse and repeat.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays itself out, because I think he even said as much without saying it after the Michigan game last year, where he said, just never thought that this would happen. Like, okay, it's just the mental cracking was very evident. And so again, like the fact that they rallied after that and were able to come together and have a come to Jesus moment and all that, kudos to them at that point. But that does lead it back into the question of if when the pressure gets turned back on, because that's great that there's the clip of him screaming, at the end of the Rutgers game, game's not over. That's great. Cool. Does that make a lick of difference in Ann Arbor? We'll find out in just a few days' time. Let's talk real quick about Michigan, Maryland, and then we'll hit our sponsors and we'll talk about the game, the reason that you're here at this podcast. Michigan, Maryland, that is exactly the type of game, if you're Michigan, that you've been waiting for.
Can I say something before you go into your analysis?
Apparently you can.
You're going to like it.
Will I?
I have been harsh.
Very rarely have I liked anything you've had to say about Michigan this year.
I have been harsh on Bryce Underwood all season, and I think it's deserving. I think it's been deserving. This was clearly his best game in a Michigan uniform.
Agree.
And it's not even close.
Agree. I mean, and again, I took some heat last week for saying that, hey, I think the Northwestern game was his best game of the year.
No.
And we're not going to revisit that. This, this was the Northwestern game minus the mistakes. I mean, this was a really clean game. He had one throw, right? He had the one throw where he tried to force it. Dude has a pick six, drops it. You know what, though? I don't know that he threw more than maybe one other pass where I went, ugh.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think everything else, I think everything else was even if it wasn't completed, which he had a very high completion percentage, but everything else was really, really accurate. He looked poised. He looked all the things that I saw in Northwestern and minimized he cut out the mistakes. No turnovers in that game. Turnovers have been a problem against Purdue. They've been a problem against Northwestern. He's done a good job overall this season taking care of the ball, but when you have back-to-back games with multiple turnovers, you get a little bit nervous. This is the game he needed. He threw that ball early, and then you just watched him settle down. Mm-hmm. And that's a great sign for Michigan. Obviously, I mean, Bryson Cusdall had a phenomenal game. Justice Haynes out for at least the regular season. We'll see what postseason and bowls or playoffs or whatever that looks like. But I would expect we're not going to see him again this year, period. Jordan Marshall, it sounds like, probably could have gone, but they wanted to wait. Yeah. Understandable, and maybe that's not unlike Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate. We'll talk about that, whether or not we think that's accurate. But, for Michigan's third string running back to come in and perform the way he did, again, Maryland doesn't have a good run defense, but for your third stringer to come in and rip off 3 touchdowns in a 100-yard game, you'll take that. Yeah. You'll take that every day. I had to start Googling when Michigan put in Thomas O'Meara, who is like the 6th string running back, and he's like ripping off a run down the side. I'm sitting there trying to Google, like, who in the world is this? I've never, I feel like I'm fairly in the know. I'm like, I have no clue who this kid is. That's a good problem for Michigan to have. It looks like they will have Jordan Marshall starting the game, so you should have, knock on wood, we record Monday morning. I'm sure Sharon will give an update. That's not really an update later on this morning, but you should have Jordan Marshall, Bryson Cusdall. On the defensive side of the ball, Maryland had only given up like 4, maybe 5 sacks all year. Michigan had 3 on Saturday. And we had talked last episode about, is that a matter of Malik Washington getting the ball out quick? Is it a matter of the offensive line? It is both. He does get the ball out quick. The offensive line is typically pretty good. So Michigan to have 3 sacks on that offensive line is a really good sign. Again, all eyes pointing to Ohio State. That's a really good sign for Michigan. Derek Moore with a couple sacks in this game. The only thing I didn't love, not the only thing, there were a couple things I didn't love about the defensive side of the ball. One of them is just, I still don't understand the rotation from Wink Martindale. I believe, I'll check my notes here, but I believe that Derek Moore played like 35 snaps and Cam Brandt played 25. There's no reason. This has been like an ongoing saga where it's like, listen, Derek Moore graded out in PFF at like 89. Cam Brandt was like one of the worst PFF grades of the game. You don't need to rotate him that often. Now, there was some talk about whether or not Moore was working through an injury. Yeah. He seems pretty healthy to me. Let's maybe just ride with him and see what happens. I don't know. The only other thing that I had some concerns about is there were a couple times, or about 2 or 3 times, where Maryland receivers just got wide open. Mm-hmm. They created some separation. Jair Hill has been locked down this year. He didn't have a great game. It wasn't terrible, but he got beat a couple times. And, obviously when you're going into the Ohio State game, that's going to be concerning because that is Ohio State's bread and butter is find good receiver, throw him ball. That's the game plan.
Jeremiah Smith down there somewhere.
And that's the game plan, right? And so
ain't a bad one.
It does, and it's not. And so that does make me a little bit concerned heading into the Ohio State game. I will also say that I thought there was one play in particular. I've been fairly critical of Zeke Berry's deep ball pass defense. It just seems like he typically loses the ball or, loses his sight on the ball. His footwork's not always very good. There was a fantastic play in this game where Malik Washington took a deep shot. I don't remember if it was to Knotts. I don't remember who it was to. Took a deep shot, and I saw Zeke Berry back there, and I remember going, oh, because the ball's just hanging in the air there. Yeah. He played it perfectly. Kept his feet, kept tracking it, didn't interfere with him. Just went up, turned his head, went up there, was able to knock the ball, dove and knocked the ball down.
I remember that.
It was a great play because, again, the game looks very different. Yeah, they blow him out, but this game looks very different if you complete that pass, if you aren't paying attention for an onside kick. Little things like that I thought Michigan did a really good job of. The Sharon Moore timeout extravaganza is still an absolute disaster for me. I don't know why does he get a bonus if you take timeouts into the half? I don't know what's going on with the clock management. That's the little things that scare me about a big game like this. Because again, whether you're Ohio State or Michigan, everything has to go right. Mm-hmm. You can't be like, well, we had a chance to maybe take a Hail Mary shot or get into field goal range, but we didn't use our timeouts well. Well, that's the difference in a game. Ask 13-10 last year. That's the difference in a football game. That's the difference between winning and losing. That's the difference between Indianapolis or playoffs or not. I don't have much faith that that's going to get cleaned up for next week or for this week. But overall, I mean, very, very little to complain about for Michigan. Really good performance all the way around. And again, if you're Michigan, after nail biters against Purdue to an extent, certainly a nail biter against Northwestern, this is the type of game you needed.
Yeah, I think one of the most impressive things you didn't even hit on, there were two things actually, was just the overall efficiency. Michigan was 12 of 14 on third down.
That'll
win you a ball game.
That'll do, pig. That'll
win you a ball game. The other thing, which I'm used to seeing as an Ohio State fan, Michigan didn't punt that entire game. Now, granted, that's like you running out the clock and missing a field goal, stuff like that. Yeah. But they did not punt the entire game.
And that'll
win you a ball game.
And that's and that's credit to Michigan's offense. By the way, Chip Lindsey called a great game. Mm-hmm. Bryce Underwood, we talked about looking good. You almost don't even need to mention it at this point, but Andrew Marsh is the clear wide receiver one. And by the way, that's not a knock on Donovan McCulley either. That's just the emergence of Marsh. And as a freshman, we mentioned this last week, with McCulley's a rental, right? McCulley's here for a year. He's gonna try and go to the draft. He'll get drafted a late round. That's good and good for him. But Andrew Marsh is going to be around. That Underwood-Marsh connection is going to be good for years.
I think just if you're a Michigan fan, you've got to be excited just about the core of every single part of that offense, because you've got Bryce Underwood, who, while I've been critical of, I've also said alongside of that, I think he will be fine.
Yeah, and you can clearly see
I've just been critiquing this season, which I think I've been fair, but I think in the long run, he'll be okay. He'll be fine. But then you got another freshman, Jordan Marshall, that has been a stud. Yep. I mean, equally as good as Justice Haynes, which says a lot. Yeah. Now you've got Andrew Marsh, who has stepped up as a true freshman. I mean, each level of that, your offensive line is getting good. This offense, even though it's not performed necessarily the way I think a lot of people would want at times, there is a lot of excitement building around that group.
This is the right time also for so much of football is momentum and peaking at the right time. This is peaking at the right. This is what we saw against Northwestern last year heading into the game, where we went, oh, maybe there's something to this. Mm-hmm. Then they put up 13 points, but it was enough, and it's 100%. All it has to be is enough. The Max Bredesen injury we'll talk about, so don't feel like we forgot that. Yeah. That's a big injury.
Same thing with the Ohio State side. This was a thing where this isn't downplaying anything. I thought this was the best game Michigan played all season.
I would agree.
Other than, I'm maybe sure that I would say maybe Washington, honestly.
Washington was also very good.
I think Washington was probably the most, just because of the level of competition.
Fair. Yeah.
I would say Washington was probably the 1A. This was 1B.
Is it possible now that Wisconsin was also a really good win? Because what is happening?
What is happening?
What is going on?
Who knows?
Also, Illinois, LOL. Yeah. Remember when Illinois was good?
Didn't you try to convince me that they were going to beat Ohio State preseason? That was a tough game.
That sounds
we'll have
like
to run
me.
the tape
that
and
sounds
see.
Like me.
But the thing that really, that I don't want to discredit Michigan by saying this, because this is more so criticism on Maryland and on Malik Washington, because I've been very high on him too. I still think he's a great player. You saw flashes of that as well this game. There were key mistakes that they made as a team that I felt like really let this game get out of hand. You talked about one already. It was a close game. I think actually they might have even been up 7-0 maybe at the time.
It was 5 minutes into the game.
Yeah. And
Michigan had not even had a possession.
Yeah. Underwood throws, just an easy pick six, and the guy just flat out drops it. Huge momentum shifter at home for the Terrapins.
I'm sorry. I was thinking onside kick. I take that back. No, it was 7-7 at that point.
Okay. Yes. I knew it was very early.
Yes.
But then there were a couple of times where Malik Washington would have a guy wide open on a deep shot and just miss him. By a couple feet. Some of them I don't even think were actually really even that close. His accuracy was just an issue all day, it felt like.
It seemed like he felt the pressure. And again, I'll credit some of that to Michigan's defense.
For sure.
I think he felt the pressure because when you've only been sacked like 4 times this year and that pocket starts closing in, you're not used to that. You probably feel it.
But I'm looking at, there were 2 specific plays. The one interception that should have been an interception and a pick six. Then there was another play. I don't even remember what receiver it was, but Jair Hill was actually the one defending this, and he got just crisped. I mean, the guy had 10 plus yards on him, and Malik Washington just overthrew him. And even the announcers and anybody watching that goes, well, that's a clear walk-in touchdown if he gets that ball off.
Yep.
Right there, you're talking about a 14-point swing in a game that was 45-20. And now that doesn't make the entire difference, but momentum starts to shift. Who knows what that looks like?
Probably doesn't change, but it feels different if they complete some of this.
There were just a couple of things where they kind of shot themselves in the foot. I don't think it would have ultimately mattered. It would have just made the game a little bit more interesting, a little closer.
But I do think it points you ahead to Ohio State. But before we get there, because we're 40 minutes in and we have not previewed the game yet.
We'll buckle up for also, about another hour.
But also we have, because so much of why we spent so much time on these other teams is because these things show where these teams are clicking right now, what the concerns are, because it all feeds in. But before we get there, maybe you feel a little bit like Jonathan Smith in Michigan State.
One last time. Let's go.
Blowing the lead at Iowa. Vacating every Big Ten win since 2022. Also, they only had 14 of them to vacate since 2022. Listen, I owe Michigan State folks an apology because they said the hammer was coming and they were right. Good on ya. Good on ya. Maybe you feel like Jonathan Smith in Michigan State. You're trying to build like a champion, but you might not know how to execute it because you're Michigan State. Aaron and the team at Elevated Integrity Construction have a winning pedigree and a team of all Americans, unlike Michigan State. They're a juggernaut of the industry, okay, you get it. Yeah. They're a juggernaut of the industry. They've built a dynasty of championship builders. For your home, church, or business build, go with the folks with integrity in their name. ElevatedIntegrity.com. I am sorry that I compared you to Michigan State. I also compared them to LSU earlier this year. The Rivalry Podcast, proud members also of the Varsity Network, powered by our friends at Learfield. The Varsity Network, the must-have app if you call yourself a college football fan, which if you're on this podcast, hopefully you do. Otherwise, just why? Live broadcasts, on-demand podcasts like this one. Free to download. The Varsity Network, free in the App Store and Google Play Store. Be sure to search for the Rivalry Podcast. We are also very proud partners with our friends at Homage this year. Is that Homage right there? It sure is. If you're watching on YouTube, he's got the hoodie sweatshirt thing. It's actually very nice. The Homage folks since 2007 been helping fans pay homage to the people, places, teams, and moments that matter most to them. And don't worry, they've got some amazing like Detroit Tigers, Detroit Lions stuff as well. Pop culture, other sports teams, movie, like they've got everything. So comfortable, quality craftsmanship, elite storytelling, and trademarked legendary comfort. You can get yourself some Homage merch and support the Rivalry Podcast in the show notes below. And by the way, if you haven't gotten your Ohio State or Michigan Rivalry Podcast specific shirts, rivalpod.com, just click on support. We also want to say thank you to the Ohio Sinus Institute. They are sponsoring Wheel Route. They're sponsoring our Stupid Genius Upset Picks of the Week this year. You deserve better sinus care. Get relief from the most experienced sinus specialist in Central Ohio, Dr. Boris Karanfilov, surgeon-led, personalized care, over 20 years of experience, minimally invasive in-office treatments, and on-site CT imaging for better answers. The Ohio Sinus Institute.
I think it's time.
It's time for the game, boy.
I think it's time. And it started for me roughly around 3:45 on Saturday when Ohio State was wrapping up. And then I turned my attention immediately to that team up north. This game, we already talked about it before we even really started diving into the recaps, means everything. I don't really care what else happens this season. I do care a lot about what happens, but I don't really care outside of what happens this week.
And that's what I want. That's really what I want to know. Cause I know your answer to this, but here's my request for this year after what happened last year. I'd like to know from Ohio State fans now, does this game matter to you or does it not?
It's always mattered. And you knew my answer to that.
And I know it does for you because like for Ohio State fans as a whole, the game mattered a lot when you were winning it. And then all of a sudden, when you couldn't buy a win against Michigan now the game doesn't really matter and it erases the loss to Michigan and, well, our season's not over. And I just want to know, like, does it matter before the game happens? Because it does. You tell me it does. You tell me it does by your actions, by your songs, by your crossing out the M's, by your focus, by your refusal to say the name. Whether you want to admit it or not, last year's loss mattered.
Well,
every single time you play this game matters, or you can stop calling yourself a fan.
100%. I shared this story last season on the podcast where I was at the game and it was after we lost and I'm walking out of the stadium. And I mean, I'm hot. That was the worst Saturday maybe of my entire life.
God bless it.
And I'm so angry. I'm not thinking anything about playoffs. That is the farthest thing from my mind. We are literally outside of the stadium, 10, 15 minutes removed from watching what just happened. And there's a group of Buckeye fans in front of me, and there's some Michigan fans all walking to their cars. And the Michigan fans are obviously ecstatic. They're getting in people's faces, honestly being kind of annoying.
Yeah.
They earned it. So whatever.
But
they weren't being disrespectful.
Also, don't be that person.
Well, they weren't being disrespectful. They were just like playfully talking trash. And then there were Ohio State fans that maybe had a little bit too much silly juice, and they
this is from a ministry, so I guess we can do that.
They just fit into it. They had water, if you know what I mean.
They had water, but the Lord had been around.
The Lord
recently,
had been around, and so they chimed in and they were chirping back and forth. And one of the statements that I heard from this Ohio State fan base was, "Well, your season's over. Ours is just beginning. We're going to the playoffs." And it immediately was like, no, that's not how this works. We just lost to them. I don't care if we go to the playoffs. I don't care. I care, but in that moment, do not care at all. But that was the mentality, even on the field. I mean, you saw it with Jack Sawyer.
I mean, that's exactly almost verbatim what he said was, your season's over. And it's like, that is, and then to afterwards, later on, be like, didn't really matter. The game has changed in playoff system. And I was like, well, your little temper tantrum showed me that it does matter.
100%.
Because guess what? Jack has no gold pants and nothing he can do can change that.
No. And I think it's weird because I really do think the fan base now is not split evenly. I think it's roughly probably 75-25, 75% still know that this game means everything, but it's the loudest part seems to be that 25% now, where they're looking at this and going, well, I mean, I even heard it after this game where they were like, well, if we lose to Michigan this week, we have one loss. Like, that might actually be better for playoff rankings because then you don't have to. And
that's just insane.
Do not talk football with me if that is your mindset. We have nothing in common. We don't watch the same game.
Because guess what? If you win the game, I'll bet you dollars to donuts that game suddenly means something again.
Oh, and I'm looking at it even from a bigger perspective. And I feel very strongly that's how the team inside that locker room is.
I would agree with that.
They're looking at this and they're going, after last year, there were a lot of people that are still on the team from last year that witnessed all of that have a bad taste in their mouth. I think Ryan Day has a different attitude coming into this game now. I think you've seen that switch get flipped a little bit. So I think they're going to have the energy, but I think when you look at them, and if you've ever been in a competitive sport at all, you should feel this way. They're looking at that game and going, they're the ones that are stopping us from getting our first trophy. None of us have a Big Ten championship. That is our first ultimate goal, beat Michigan.
Yeah, gold pants.
1A or 1B of that is win the Big Ten championship. Then you're wanting the natty.
Yep. The goal is all three. The goal is always all three.
Michigan is stopping you from getting two of those three done. Because if they lose, Ohio State's not going to the Big Ten championship.
Yeah. Michigan has shut down at least two of those three goals for 4 years now.
Yeah. And I think that locker room is going to be ready and prepared for that. And I also think, and this is just maybe me personally, I want to be the team that kind of goes and shuts Indiana up. And we don't have to dive into that, obviously, but you've seen Indiana going in there and obviously going to most likely finish with an undefeated season. I think they play Purdue this weekend.
Yep. By the way, Friday night football games. We'll get to college football pick 'em later. Don't forget that there are phenomenal games at each day part on Friday. Mm-hmm. Cancel all your plans.
And so I'm looking at this game, and I think this is the season where you really start to see the focus get back. I think years past, you've seen Ryan Day get in his own head. I shared the story earlier about him on the sideline. You even heard stories. There were obviously videos that came out after the championship season where they had the players and him only meeting. And he said players asked him the hard questions. And there was a book that came out. I forget the guy's name, but it kind of detailed all that. And he had interviewed specific players. And the players literally after that game expressed frustration with him and said, like, dude, what is going on? You're not setting us up. What is, like, the game plan wasn't working and you refused to adapt, and made him hold himself accountable. And I think that switched gears in his mind. I think you've seen a different Ryan Day. I think even last year, you saw games, I would say Nebraska was one of those, where they underperformed and the level of focus just wasn't there.
They were very lucky to beat Nebraska last year.
100%.
And it was not a good Nebraska team either.
No. And so I'm looking at this year's team, and I think the focus is there. I think the desire is there. My biggest question mark for this,
let's dive into it,
is the health. I think there's obviously other things as well. But last week, you don't see Jeremiah Smith, you don't see Carnell Tate.
Yeah.
Do either of them play? Do one of them play?
You know what my gut says? My gut says that they are both going to play, but I don't believe that Carnell Tate's fully healthy. Now, obviously you could say, well, yeah, of course not, because they held him up. But like, hear me. I think Jeremiah Smith is going to be at 90%. I feel like Carnell Tate might be at like 60%. I think they may both play, but I think Carnell Tate may not be full health.
I disagree.
What do you think?
I think
that, by the way, this is not inside information.
Yeah.
This is purely me speculating.
The only thing that I will say is, having been at the game this past Saturday, hyper focused watching them, it seemed like, and if you saw the UCLA game, you saw how bad of a limp Jeremiah seemed to have. Awful. He still had one, but it wasn't nearly as noticeable. So that makes me feel a little bit better. Yeah. Not 100%, but I feel more confident
he'll play.
I think Jeremiah Smith plays. I would almost say that's 100%.
Yeah.
Carnell Tate,
it's his birthday, for goodness sake.
Carnell Tate, I don't think plays
at all.
I don't, and I hate to say this, it feels eerily similar to the JSN situation from a couple seasons ago. This is a guy that, coming into the season, had a lot of high expectations. I think up until his injury, he was a clear first round pick, and I still think people will probably select him in the first round. I don't think he is going to go out, and I think this is just kind of the new age of college football that we're in. I don't see him going, knowing that they're going to be able to make the playoffs regardless. I don't see him risking re-injury for that. I think he'll come back for playoffs. I think you see him sit this and just make sure he's 100% good to go, because the championship is still in grasp. But I just don't see him wanting to risk getting injured further if he's not 100%. And I don't believe he's 100%.
It'll be interesting to see what that looks like, because again, you saw against a bad Rutgers defense, you saw the Ohio State offense, despite putting up that many points, the passing game was not the same, understandably so, was not the same rhythm as having your top guys in there.
I mean, it was still fine. Like, it wasn't.
It was fine, but was that performance enough to beat Michigan? No, it wouldn't be.
Maybe.
And so let's actually get into it, and let's start on that side. So, I mean, like, that is the big matchup. One of the big matchups for Ohio State, Michigan is going to be the Ohio State pass game. Mm-hmm. A lot of it does hinge, I think, on the health of Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith. On the Michigan side, I mentioned Jair Hill. I didn't think he played a great game against Maryland, but he has been fantastic this year. Far fewer mistakes than he had last year. I mean, Michigan has a good, not great pass defense. I think they're ranked like 47th or so. So, I mean, they're above average, but they're probably an average pass defense. I have some concerns, understandably so, about Ohio State connecting on these deep shots. That's where Carnell Tate thrives. Jeremiah Smith can do whatever he wants, wherever, right? Yeah. But like, that's where I think the loss of Carnell Tate becomes especially significant, is because he tends to be the most common deep ball guy. I'm not sure, just from some of the things I've seen overall, I'm just not sure Michigan can bend, don't break. But I think the big key is, if you're giving up these 35, 40-yard passes, you can bend, not break all you want. But if all of a sudden they just get it in one fell swoop, it's going to be real hard for Michigan to hang with them. I think positively for Michigan here, I mean, we've seen Michigan go up against, we've not seen anybody like Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith. Okay. Mm-hmm. Like outside of maybe, USC, outside maybe USC, and we saw how that went. Though actually, it was more the ground game that caused issue than the passing game, if we're being honest. They're in a level by themselves. But I've seen really good things from Jair Hill against Denzel Boston, good receiver. Against Nick Marsh, good receiver. And so I would also say that Michigan has a better secondary this year than we had last year. And last year, Michigan did a good job of shutting that pass game down. Ohio State's going to get their pound of flesh against them. It's just a matter of how much, and I think a lot of it hinges on, can you avoid the big chunk fell swoop plays? Because if they can keep it in front of them, I think that does tend to bode well for Michigan, but it's a big if.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest question mark is obviously the receiver room. I think it shouldn't be a difficult thing to analyze for these two teams if you're a fan of either side. The game plan is the same as it has been all season. Ohio State's going to try to throw the ball. Michigan's going to try to run the ball. That's going to be it. Now, there are some concerns for Ohio State when you start looking at how a guy like Andrew Marsh has started to develop. I think at the beginning of the season, you didn't really have to account for any of the receivers, really. None of them have really shown out. He's going to be a problem. Yeah. You've got to watch for him now.
I am not. I was going to say, I got to be careful so I don't eat my words. But listen, this whole podcast, if you lose the game, you're going to eat everything you should have said. So if it's one-on-one coverage, I will take Andrew Marsh over Igbinosun 8 out of 10 times because I don't think he can keep up with him without grabbing him. I really don't. Mm-hmm. I think Michigan's emergence as a multi-dimensional team, because again, the run game is still going to be the bread and butter. Like, there's no question about that. Also, have you seen Ohio State's linebackers and have you met a guy named Caleb Downs?
Mm-hmm. You will.
Michigan, if you haven't, you about to.
You about to.
Dink around and discover, if you will. Michigan's bread and butter is still going to be the run game for multiple reasons. But Michigan is not a one-dimensional team like I would even say they were earlier in the year.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And certainly look at last year. Look at that team last year with a potato at quarterback, and Michigan still got it done. Why? Because they were, despite being a very one-dimensional run-first team, you could stack the box because you knew. I think Michigan's emergence as a multi-dimensional team is going to force Ohio State's defense to be a little bit more honest in the way they play. I think Chip Lindsey, and this is not me making a prediction, I'm just saying, I do think, regardless of outcome, I do predict that Chip Lindsey is going to continue calling games really well that forces defenses to stay honest. He's worked the screen game into Michigan's game plan to use the pass rush against teams. He's taken they don't take a lot of deep shots, but they've taken those intermediately long throws to Marsh. Obviously, the run game, they'll run stretch. They'll pound it up the middle. There's a lot of different things. And in fact, one of the things that Michigan has not done a ton yet, that I'm going to say right now, I think it's coming Saturday, is they have not called like these designed quarterback keepers a whole lot for Bryce. We saw one against Northwestern, fooled the cameraman and everybody except God, and Bryce Underwood scoots into the end zone. I actually really think, and I don't think it's going to be like running for 150 or 100 yards or anything like that, but we saw like 20 yards against Northwestern. We saw like 30 yards this past weekend. I think you're probably seeing that 50 to 75 yard rushing game from Bryce. I think if Michigan has their way, they're going to use his legs a lot more. That's not something that they've put on film a whole lot. When you do those things, it's not that any one of those things has to be outstanding even, but if you make defenses have to account for a bunch of different things, that's how you spread out a really good defense like Ohio State. Yeah, and I think what's interesting about this matchup is the thing that Ohio State does really well is also the thing Michigan does really well. You just harped on it. Michigan's bread and butter is running the ball. Yep. They're like, 10th in the nation? They average like 235 a game.
That's where they want to win.
223. If they have success on the ground, rinse and repeat. I mean, that's just going to be what it is. Ohio State, though, on the defensive side of things, ranked second in the nation in run defense, first in every other statistical category. This defense is elite. They've played playmakers. They haven't just had a cupcake like people want to say. They've played some really good players. Jonah Coleman, one of them. Antoine Raymond from Rutgers was a 1,000-yard guy. They've had some guys that are good running backs, that are good running teams, and they've just locked them up. It hasn't mattered. I genuinely, my feel for this game is if you're expecting a shootout, Ohio State wins.
Oh, I don't think there's a person under God's blue sky that would disagree with you.
I think in order for Michigan to win this game, they've got to have it be an ugly slugfest like last year, where they've got to completely shut down any semblance of a run game for Ohio State.
I would agree with that. I don't think it has to be nearly as ugly as it was last year.
No, and I think,
but if you let Ohio, to your point, and I'll let you continue here, to your point, if you let Ohio State run the ball in addition to throwing the ball, it's just,
you're in trouble.
It's hard. And by the way, that goes the same way the other way too, where if you let Michigan pass the ball in addition to running the rock, you're in trouble. You've got to force the other team to be one-dimensional in some respect.
And I think the one thing that's really been a nice addition the past couple of weeks, and granted you take into account the competition, but Bo Jackson has been the running back one for weeks now. But these past 2 weeks, I think, have given you a lot of hope going into this game, because you're not just going to pass every down. You've got to be able to run the ball at some point. You've got to be, I don't feel like it's the fact that people always want to revert back to. I think Ryan Day even said it last year, where he's like, the winner of the game has always been the one that wins the ground game. I don't think that has to be the case this year.
If that's going to be the case, then chalk up another L.
It can't be a vast difference. No, you can't be down like 200 something yards to Michigan and then you have 70. But if Michigan has 130, 140 rushing yards and you have like the 70 to 80, I think you can still win that.
Because the only stat that matters is the scoreboard.
Yeah.
That's literally, yeah.
I think that's what makes the difference. I think that this is going to be a game where Michigan's going to be ready to go. Their defense is going to be up to pressuring Sayan. He's going to get a little uncomfortable. I don't think Carnell Tate plays. I think Jeremiah Smith does. I think this is one where you see Ohio State's offense get slowed down a little bit, but I don't think they get slowed down enough. I think the past 2 weeks have shown me that Bo Jackson has the ability to really break one off. He reminded me of Travion Henderson the past couple of weeks. I think for him, if he can get me 70 yards, 75 yards on the ground, I feel pretty good about that.
If you're Brian Hartline and if you're Bo Jackson, where I think if I'm Ohio State, I don't think you're going to beat Michigan just straight up running the ball.
No.
And I should rephrase. I mean, correct. But I think beyond that, I don't think you're going to have success in the run game just straight up running the ball. Where I actually think that you can get Bo Jackson involved in some of these guys is they seem to have, now granted Rutgers is terrible at run defense, but they had success on the perimeter. Mm-hmm. And some of that was the run game via the halfback pass, or via throwing the ball out to your running back. That's where I could see Ohio State having some success, because it's a pass, but it's basically a run. Mm-hmm. I think that's where, whether it's a straight up throw, whether it's a pitch, I think because Michigan knows that they are going to likely have to, even if you can't get to Sayan, you nailed it. You've got to pressure him. Mm-hmm. Again, we saw with Malik Washington. Ohio State also doesn't give up a lot of sacks. Neither does Maryland. But even when they couldn't get home against Washington, he got a little bit antsy when he felt the pressure, because he just hadn't faced that yet. Julian Sayan, as good as he is still a young quarterback. He has not faced a ton of pressure from defensive lines yet. So I think Michigan knows that they've got to affect him that way. The way to mitigate that, one of the ways to mitigate that, is to punish the pass rush against itself. Michigan's going to need to do this against Ohio State. Mm-hmm. Caden Curry, Kenyatta Jackson, they're going to try to get to Underwood. This offensive line is good, but they're still young. And so the way Michigan's going to try to mitigate is the same way if you're Ohio State, you should probably try to mitigate those quick dump off passes where you can use the pass rush against it, whether it's a straight up screen or just tossing the ball out to the running back. If you're Michigan, that's where you're going to have to be disciplined. You're going to have to do things like fundamentals, make a tackle, don't jump off sides. Things that Michigan has, the tackling has been much better after the USC game, but the offsides thing, still a problem. Those fundamental, when you get down to these nearly intangible things, mm-hmm. This is where things matter. Things like discipline. Neither Michigan nor Ohio State take a ton of penalties. Michigan talked about in the Michigan State game, play with emotion, don't be emotional. Mm-hmm. Going to be massive. If Brandon Hillman continues to rein himself in, that's great. If he just starts flying off the handle again and you're given free 15-yard penalties, I mean, that will lose you the game. Mm-hmm. You stand over a guy and flex on him. that'll lose you the game. Like so many things. You don't have to play perfectly, but you've got to play sound fundamental football.
Yeah, you got to play with an edge, but still smart.
So I'm gonna ask you. Go ahead, and if you need to lead up to it, do so. Let's predict this game.
This is my prediction. If the circumstances I said happen, so Jeremiah Smith plays, Carnell Tate does not play, this is what I think will happen. I think a lot of people probably still expect Ohio State. I think right now they're 9.5-point favorites.
It opened at 11.5. It's down to 9.
I don't think it hits that.
Okay.
I have Ohio State 27, Michigan 20. I think this is a game that is evenly contested the entire time. I think Ohio State runs efficiently. I don't think they do anything crazy. I think Bo Jackson gets the 65, 80-yard range. I think Julian probably throws for 230, 240, a couple of touchdowns. Bo Jackson probably adds one in. I think Bryce probably turns it over once, and it is what it is. It ain't going to be fun until the very end. That's the prediction I know I'm going to hit.
I think I've told this story on the podcast before, but my wife, who she knows football, she enjoys football. She doesn't watch it a ton, but this is like the game that she's like, I want to sit down and watch this game with you. And again, only her and my kids. Those are the only people I'll watch this game with. But she's asked me, we've been married for 9 years now, and she's asked me in early years in our marriage, she would look at me and say, do you actually enjoy watching this game?
Yeah.
And the answer is no.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, no, I don't enjoy watching this game at all. I said, I enjoy it after the game and then only maybe. That's I don't know if you have the ability to just soak in and go, I'm just going to sit back and just enjoy this blue blood matchup. I have no idea how to talk to you about this game. That's fine. Good for you. I don't. I will pace. I'll put my Strava on and I'll just pace and probably do about 37 miles in this game. All right, so here I want to lead up to it because I kind of want to summarize my thoughts on the game because we've hit a bunch of different places here. Offense for Michigan, defense for Michigan, score prediction. On offense for Michigan, I think Ohio State's defense is as advertised. Like I will admit, I will continue to harp on, but who have they played though, and all that stuff. You can be very good and be very untested. I think they're untested. I think they're very good. This is a tough ask for Michigan. I think Michigan's play calling and dual threat nature forces the defense to be honest. I do think that helps a young offensive line hold up better than expected. I also expect Ohio State to get to Bryce a couple times. I don't think that's crazy. I think Ohio State probably forces an early turnover in this game. I think Bryce gets really hyped up, right? Like first start in the game, kid from Michigan. I think he probably, he throws one of those balls like he threw against Maryland. I don't know if it goes for a pick six, but I think he turns it over early and then kind of settles in a little bit. The Michigan run game, I don't think can just slam into the wall. I think that's why emerging as this two-dimensional beast is going to matter a lot. I think Ohio State's defense is probably not used to this year being on the field for these long drives. I think this is not rocket science. That's where Michigan can start to expose the defense. If you get them gassed, you get them tired. They've not had to face that over extended periods of time. On defense for Michigan, I mean, listen, Ohio State's got to get their running backs involved in the perimeter. They're going to get their pound of flesh. I keep using that analogy, but that's truly what I think. Michigan's bend, don't break is good. Ohio State will get their deep shots. They're going to have 2-3 passes for 35, 40 yards. They're going to get theirs. The question is, can Michigan keep things in front of them, whether receivers are healthy or not? Can they do enough to keep most things in front of them? I think they probably can. However, this Ohio State wide receiver room is really good. At the end of the day, here's the beautiful thing about the game. None of what we've talked about for the last hour matters.
Facts.
I have watched Ohio State have really good wide receiver rooms for 4 or 5 years now. And I've watched Michigan, including last year, have defenses that I went, man, I don't know if we can hang with them, and have consistently done that. I think the number one thing that sits here, in addition to things like discipline, in addition to home field advantage, which does matter in this game, it gets hard to communicate, gets hard to hear. You've got people get like all these intangibles matter in this game. I think it's wise that Ryan Day is treating this game like any other game. But he obviously knows, the players obviously know. But I think when the crowd gets loud and adversity comes, I think some of the old ghosts start to show up for Ryan Day. Michigan's not going to win a shootout against them. I think Michigan is able to do offensively and defensively just enough to get this win. I'm going to take Michigan. I will take Michigan 23. I will take Ohio State 21 in a game that will take 27 years off my life. My biggest question in this game, Michigan 23, Ohio State 21, is will Ohio State Twitter post the final score this time? Because they still haven't posted it from 23. This game will be zero amounts of fun.
I'm not. I'm looking forward to it and also dreading it.
And watch us predict 27-20 for the Bucks or 23-21 for Michigan. And watch Ohio State win by 30. Watch Michigan win by 20.
And
it's just
my prediction
you have
changes.
No clue.
My prediction changes if Carnell Tate plays.
Do you think
I think if Carnell Tate plays, I think you're looking at like a 38-24, something along those lines.
And by the way, I'll just remind everybody, there's a possibility that this game gets rematched in Indianapolis the week after. Have you seen this? Yeah. So there's like
it won't happen.
There's like 7 or 8 game scenarios where like tiebreakers come in.
An act of God would have to come down to
correct, because it would have to be obviously a Michigan win.
Indiana would have to lose.
They're not losing, and Washington
Purdue.
would have to beat Oregon.
Michigan is not going to Indy if they lose this game. Purdue is not beating Indiana, and I have said all season long that Indiana is not an elite team yet.
If you're Ohio State, all you got to do is win and you're in. If you are Michigan, you got to win, and Washington's got to beat Oregon.
And then you've got to pray real hard.
Well, no, that's it. Michigan would play Indiana if Michigan wins and Washington beats Oregon. Now, there's plenty of speculation on, hey, does that actually help your playoff chances or hurt them? Don't care. Win the game. Everything else is gravy. Let's talk real quick about college football pick'em. This is the longest episode we've ever done. Don't care.
Nope,
so much to talk about here. There are some great games. These first 3, I've got 7 games for us to pick. The first 3 are on
Friday. Did I get all 7? I got 6. Okay. So you might be throwing.
The first 3 are on
at
Friday night. Don't forget that. Next 4 on Saturday. But again, after the game, nothing else matters. So, and as a reminder, Stupid Genius has to be a 5.5 point underdog. You're up 30 to 6.
30 to 6.5.
So things are going well for me.
I was close.
And by the way, Michigan will not be my Stupid Genius pick because that absolutely dooms them. Let's talk Ole Miss at Mississippi State. Lots of drama around Lane Kiffin. Is he going? Is he staying? Some folks have said that this is a distraction for Ole Miss. Mississippi State has tried to knock off Texas. They've tried to knock off Georgia. They've been close. Not against Georgia, but against Texas.
Yeah.
What do you have here?
No, it's Ole Miss. I mean,
you think they lock in?
Yeah, I don't know if they'll lock in. I think Lane Kiffin is for sure gone. I think him and LSU are basically a done deal at this point.
Decision will be made Saturday after the Egg Bowl, which is Friday at noon.
Yeah,
I've got Ole Miss in this one too. I think this team is locked in. I don't know if Lane is, but I think the team
Lane's
is.
not. They're just too talented. They'll win.
3:30, Georgia at Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech apparently participating in the Who Wants to Win the ACC? Absolutely nobody bowl.
Yeah,
So they're playing for a college football playoff at-large spot, I guess.
It's Georgia. Gunnar Stockton has been on a tear. I was rooting for Haynes King to show up against Pittsburgh and
just nothing.
I mean,
they tried,
but it was like, I forget what it was. I was leaving the game on Saturday and I checked the score and I think they were down by 14 or something at one point.
It was 28-7.
Yes. That's when I saw that and I was like, oh man, did not see that. And then by the time I got home, it was like 35-28 or something. I was like, oh man, they're about to do it. And then they threw a pick 6. I'm like, well,
yeah,
no.
Georgia Tech, even if they beat Georgia, it's not enough.
No.
The committee is clearly not going to honor anybody except the ACC champion, period. Maybe Miami, depending on how
I can see Miami if they don't go.
As an aside, I do firmly believe that let's say every chalk in the Oregon game. Let's say Michigan goes 10-2, doesn't play in the Big Ten championship. Michigan's in. I firmly believe that they would be 10-2. They would be in over Notre Dame. They'd be better win, best win in the country at 10-2. I think so. I think they'd be in over Notre Dame if need be. I think they'd be in over Miami for sure. BYU, Utah, and Vandy. I think Michigan's ahead of all of them. The only exception to that would be if BYU somehow turns around and wins the Big 12, and then you've got to beat out Texas Tech. I don't know if you could do it. We'll get to that. We'll see. Let's handle business first, and we'll worry about playoffs. Texas A&M at Texas. Aggies just 2.5-point favorites here.
I don't like it, but I'm going Texas just for the fun of it.
Well, now I know it's not going to happen.
It won't.
I took Texas too.
It won't.
I took Texas as well.
But after all the narratives that team has faced this season, after all the criticism, and some rightfully so with Arch, it feels like this is a game you saw it a couple of weeks ago with Texas A&M where they almost slipped up. This being a home game at Texas, I think really helps them. And it feels like this is where Arch gets his moment.
Well, and Arch had a horrible first half of the season.
Mm-hmm.
He's looked pretty good now.
Mm-hmm.
Very different Arch from when we saw him week 1 against Ohio State.
100%.
Now, granted, they played Arkansas last week, RIP, but okay. Yeah, but I've got Texas here too. Like, Texas is out of the playoffs without a bunch of help. Okay. This you'd have to have a number of crazy things happen. But I think Texas wins this game. What else are you playing for? It's chaos. By the way, because A&M losing would be chaos. They're still getting in.
Oh, for sure.
Obviously, they're still getting in, but chaotic.
And that's why I picked Texas. I just think it would be so fun. I just want the drama. Give me the drama.
How about Miami at Pitt? Pitt can win themselves into the ACC championship game and knock Miami out.
They won't. And it sounds weird and probably a little disrespectful because I thought that Georgia Tech was going to take care of business against them and they just didn't. But I still think that this Miami team is a really, really good team. I think they're just going to be too much for Pitt.
I don't.
You're going Pitt?
Pitt is my stupid genius upset pick of the week at +6.5. I think Pitt has everything to play for. Miami does too. The ACC, though, is so chaotic this year. This feels like the type of thing. Miami has proven nothing to me this year. Mm-hmm. All this hype about this is the best Miami team, blah, blah, blah. They have proven nothing.
There was narrative at the beginning of the year that them and Ohio State were the only two elite teams.
Yeah. Miami is not coming out of Pitt with a win. Their playoff hopes are done. I like Pitt in this one. I don't know how, but Pitt might find its way into the playoff.
Could you? Oh, man.
How about Oregon at Washington? We've kind of already hit on this. Oregon has lost 3 out of the last 4 to Washington. Washington has nothing to play for except to spoil this game.
Yeah, it's at Oregon.
It's not.
It's not.
It's
I thought
in
it
Seattle.
was. Are you sure?
Mm-hmm.
Are you confident?
Was, and now you're making me not so confident.
I'm pretty confident it's in Autzen.
No.
It's not?
It's in Seattle.
Well, then night game?
Don't. No. It's like 3:30.
I'm still going Oregon. Yeah. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's got to be. It's got to be Oregon. It's got to be Oregon. How about, I do want to throw this one in there. Vandy at Tennessee.
Tennessee. I don't know what it was because normally I love guys like Tiago Pavia. I just don't. I can't get on board.
I'll put it this way. If Michigan loses to Ohio State, I'm cheering for Vanderbilt. If Michigan beats Ohio State, I'm sorry, there has to be a sacrifice. Some of you
may die, and that's a risk I'm willing to take.
I'm sorry, Vanderbilt, but I will take Tennessee in this game. So pending the outcome of the Michigan game, I might cheer for you, though. And then finally, Alabama and Auburn. And this is another game. Alabama's only favored by 5.5.
I know, because rivalry games are different.
Alabama, and that's exactly it. If last year taught us anything, it's that number one, is that anything can happen in a big rivalry game. Number 2, Alabama Auburn is always bonkers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, whether it's the kick 6 or Jalen Milroe heaving up a prayer that gets answered miraculously, by some miracle that gets Alabama into the playoff. Like, weird stuff happens in this game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it happens this year. I think Alabama absolutely destroys Auburn. I think Alabama wins this game by 30.
Oh wow,
Listen, I'd love nothing more than Auburn to win this game, whether Michigan wins or not. Hilarious. I do not think that Alabama is going to I don't think Alabama is going to even come close to losing this game.
I would agree with that. But man, there's such a deep part. No, not even a deep part. It's pretty up. It's pretty up close.
It's pretty evident.
I wear it on my shoulder. I would love for Alabama to lose this.
100%.
And then hear all the talk about Kalen DeBoer getting ready to get out of there. Because there are so many head coaching vacancies now that I'm like, if the heat gets turned up a little bit this early into his career,
they miss the playoffs, they lose a rivalry game. Listen, this is the one thing this week. It's that meme with the guys like kind of like grasping hands and whatever. Where it's Michigan, Ohio State. cheering against Alabama. The one thing we can agree on this week is that we will both be pumped if Alabama loses this football game. Nothing else matters, though. After noon on Saturday, it is the game. Michigan and Ohio State. Be sure to follow @RivalPod on social media. Mr. JP will be up in Ann Arbor for that one. And be sure to subscribe wherever you're watching and listening right now. You got anything else?
I do. I haven't given my stupid genius yet. You skipped right by it. I have a really good one that I spent a lot of time thinking through.
Just got excited, man.
This is thanks to our friends again at Ohio Sinus Institute for sponsoring this segment. You already heard Jace's stupid genius. Mine I thought really long and hard about. It's Navy at Memphis, right at 5.5. I think that seals the deal. Game? Memphis.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I know. That's why it's my stupid genius. Sounds like an easy dub to me.
It's a better pick than mine.
Well, it usually is, judging by me winning 30 to 6.5.
Wherever you're watching college football. By the way, also happy Thanksgiving. Have a great Thanksgiving. I hope that yours is ruined, JP.
Well,
by the end
won't
of Saturday. Because the game's on Saturday.
Yeah, the game's on Saturday.
So. All right. Anyway. The Rivalry Podcast is part of the Varsity Network from Learfield and the River Podcast Network from River Radio Ministries.
New episodes out every Monday.
Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you're listening right now, and follow on social media @RivalPod and RivalPod.com.
And if you like what you hear, share with a friend so they can listen too.